Right from childhood, I discovered the power of storytelling through visual arts. And as a child, it was my superpower. It became this special thing I had that differentiated me from the other. You see, by the time I got into university in Enugu and I started to realize that there was this world that actually exists.
There are certain things that cannot be taught in school. It's innate, it's inborn. Perhaps for you, what you have is inborn.
I do not agree. Visual arts has always been my thing, right from childhood. You know, it's a story I've told so many times, but it's there. The stuff I was doing when I was in primary school, you know, drawing, has not changed. I've always been that person who would create some form of visual art and then derive my joy from the way it makes people feel. You understand? And right from childhood, I discovered the power of storytelling through visual arts. And as a child, it was my superpower. You know, it became this special thing I had that, differentiated me from the other kids. And this was this thing that I could use to control my environment and influence my environment. So it's all started from childhood, from drawing, you know. Photography came much, much later. I've always been an artist, a visual artist, used to draw, you know. And if you want me to tell you that journey, the story of that journey, I mean, I can try and compress it. You understand? It's a long story.
Well, it's interesting that you started with painting, basically.
Yeah.
But during your university level, you did not study arts.
No, I studied law.
You studied law.
Yeah.
And why was that for you?
Oh, well, I mean, I come from a family of lawyers. You know, my father was a judge. In my house then, you had only two major professions that were recognized. You had to be a lawyer or a doctor. So, result, 4 lawyers and 2 doctors, out of 7 kids. And that was just it. But I also grew up in Umuahia. Umuahia was a very sort of quiet place in those days, in the 70s and 80s. There was no gallery. There was no art school. So growing up as a child obsessed with art, I didn't consider art a profession. I mean, there were a lot of my friends in primary school who were playing football, obsessed with football. There were no football academies then. None of them went to university to go and study football. And so I said, well, I'm intelligent enough. I'll study, go do jump and get into university. And it was when I got to University of Nigeria, Enugu campus for law. Enugu was quite a cosmopolitan city, There was the British Council, there were art galleries, there was IMT, who had a very vibrant art department, great artists like Bona Ezudo, Nskakensien, They had a group of artists called the Aka Group of Artists. They used to exhibit together. The first time I went for the exhibition, my mind was blown. You see, I grew up in Umuahia next to the State Library. And I'd developed a culture, a habit of obsessively researching anything I was interested in. I used to read books, you understand? And I'd read all these books about the great artists, all the Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt, Monet, Picasso, all them, Michelangelo and the rest of them, and they were like fairy tales to me. Oh, wow, there are people living this kind of life a long time ago in Europe. And I didn't think real people lived like that in Africa. It was when I got to Enugu that I went to a true exhibition, a car exhibition. I saw Tayo Adenike's painting, I saw Bona Ezudo, and my mind was blown. But it was too late, you see. I was already studying law. You understand? But yet, all I wanted to do from morning till night was to draw, you see. So that was my journey in university. I was a bit conflicted. It was in year 3. I decided I was going to be an artist and that I was going to finish law. I already became famous in school, making paintings and drawings. You see, I created a business name called Dezulo. So anybody that was in Enugu campus those years, will be familiar with Dezulo. I used to make posters. And so that was my university days. It was in university that I understood the true power of visual arts, and the fact that visual arts is a major part of social engineering.
Yeah.
I was able to control and affect school culture. I had a column then called Campus Dude, where I would make cartoons and make statements about issues in the school.
Cartoon.
Yes, you understand. Just this busybody kind of character who would come out and make a side comment about anything. Maybe like this Ibom Air thing. I would draw and he would make a side comment, you understand? And I started to see how that was affecting the culture in school. So I knew I was powerful beyond measure.
I love it. But again, I'm also thinking, just going back to your background, you had just two professions. It's either you are into medicine or you're a lawyer. And you decided to, get into painting, become an artist. And I'm wondering what your parents thought of you at that point in time.
Well,
And what they think of you, much later.
well, my parents had always known. I mean, there was no disguising the fact that I was obsessed with art. You understand? I couldn't stop. That was the only thing I did, apart from making sure I didn't fail my exams. You understand? So they all knew. And I also understand parents. Parents can only see the world through their own experience. And in those days, what does it mean to be an artist? It's crazy. Even now, it is still a very difficult decision to say, "Oh, my child wants to be an artist." So when they exercise fears, so will this child survive? How is he going to make a living? What is this art thing? You understand? I thoroughly understand. My father was a judge, and being a lawyer guaranteed you, livelihood. Being a doctor guaranteed you livelihood, and that was the way my father, he said, "Look, my son, if a young man comes to say he wants to marry your daughter, and you say, what do you do?" And you say, "I'm an engineer," you say, "What did you engineer?" But if he says, "I'm a lawyer," I say, "Oh, please come in." It means uh, your children won't starve. You say, "I'm a doctor," "Oh, of course." You understand? Father was British trained, here. And so I understood their fears, you understand? But I was in too deep. It wasn't the matter of this is what I wanted to do. It is a matter of this is who I am. It is a becoming. You understand? And until I follow that path, I will be lost forever. You know? So I knew deep down, it was in my year 3 in university, I made that decision. I said, "Oh, this is my path. This is what I was brought to this earth to do." I understood my purpose. And for me, that is the most important thing for any human being, to understand what it is you are put on this earth to do. Focus is everything. You see, we have a finite number of hours that we're going to spend on this earth.
Yeah.
And time is one thing that you spend and you never get back. It just keeps flowing until it stops. So if you do focus on what your purpose is, I think you would get somewhere faster, and there'll be less conflict in life, really, if one understands his purpose. Focus is key.
I love it when you say if one understands his purpose, and it happens at different facets or different, stages in life. But I'm going to ask you about what was your tipping point? What was the point that, that breakthrough moment for you? So in year 3, you decided this would be what I would do. But you're not just Kelechi Amadi Obi as the artist. You're now a creative photographer. You're now known all over. And what was the tipping point for you?
There are several tipping points in my life. It's a journey, you see. And there was an aha moment. You see, by the time I got into university and in Enugu, and I started to realize that there was this world that actually exists, I became conflicted because I was wholeheartedly sold to the fact that I was going to become a lawyer. Because, I mean, that's what you do for a living. Art is just what you like doing. I don't know if you understand. Society makes us believe and understand that, oh, you have to get a job. The whole educational system was designed to prepare you to become an employee. You understand? So you are being conditioned that, oh, you come out, you get a good grade, and then you get employed in a law firm, and then you get a job, and you start to make a living. That is a path for 90% of the people. And so I knew that in life you needed to visualize where you were going to. So I tried to visualize myself as a lawyer. I don't know if you understand. But then all I wanted to do was to draw. This was something I was uniquely positioned to have a greater advantage over other people. And it was something I enjoyed immensely. I wasn't just enjoying it, I was obsessed with it. You understand? And so I was in conflict. I was like, okay, you have to study, you have to get good grades so you can be a good lawyer. You have to imagine yourself as, in those days, the most popular lawyers, Rotimi Williams. You understand? Gani Fawemi, if you wanted to be an activist. And I tried to imagine myself like any of these people. But then this vision of me in a big warehouse making huge paintings kept coming to my head, and I kept resisting it. I was like, Kelechi, stop thinking like that. Are you crazy? That's not a life. What do you mean? Why are you imagining yourself in a big warehouse with big paintings? You know? But it was my year 3, I read a book. Just one of these self-help books, like Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and things like that. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, those American dream, motivational stuff. This book was called The Spirit of Apollo, and it was Apollo, the Apollo space odyssey from America to the moon. That it was called Apollo. So it was the spirit, the audacity to believe that you can put a man in the moon. That if you dare to dream and walk towards that dream, your dream will surely come true. That's why they named the book The Spirit of Apollo. That how can you embody that spirit of envisioning your future and making it come true? You get? So I read the first few chapters, and the first few chapters are talking about understanding your purpose, who you are. And in that book, they said, only you will know who you are. No other person on this earth, nobody will do this for you. You must search your soul and understand what you were put on this earth to do. They asked several questions. They said, first of all, your life stream is like water passing through a pipe. It has a finite distance that it will go. It also has a finite amount of force that it comes with. If you put too many branches to it, the distance it will go will be reduced, and the force with which it will arrive will be dismal. But if you focus it in one direction, then the full force of your life's essence will arrive with alacrity, and the world will hear your sound. I said,
Indeed, the world has heard and is still hearing your sound.
And then they said, what would you do for the rest of your life if there was no possibility of failure?
That's deep.
I said, Chai!
That's deep.
I said, I know what it is that I will do for the rest of my life. There is no doubt whatsoever. That night, I made a decision to change course from law to fine art immediately. My roommates were like astounded. I woke up in the morning and I told them I've made a decision. They're like, are you crazy? You're in year 3. Law is 4 years, fine art is 5. If you go to Nsukka to go and study fine arts, you'll be demoted to year 2. Are you okay? You understand? I say, you people do not understand. And you will not understand. This is what I've been put on this earth to do. The colors.
There are certain things that cannot be taught in school. It's innate. it's inborn. Perhaps for you, what you have is inborn.
I do not agree with you. I don't. I do not believe in talent. I know there is genetics. Okay? I mean, yeah, there are these things you're predisposed to, of course. Okay? But I believe in practice. I believe that if you find passion in something and you start to practice it profusely, you will then develop the muscle of whatever it is you're doing. And the more you practice, the better you get. And you will get to a point in your practice that it transcends the physical and goes into the metaphysical. It becomes subconscious. Anything you repeat severally is then confined to the subconscious part of you. And you then start to do those things subconsciously. And when you do things subconsciously, if there are not regular things that everybody does subconsciously, you start to look like a magician. People start saying you're talented. But are you talented in walking? No. At some time in your life, it was difficult to walk. You put enough practice. You don't just walk, you run and you dance. You understand? And if you dance hard enough, it becomes spiritual. People say, oh, she is talented. She can move in ways that are unbelievable. You understand? It is superhuman. Well, because you've taken dance to a different level. Even walking then becomes an Olympic game that you could win gold at if you decide to walk fast enough. So I believe that the passion I had from childhood for this thing then made me practice a lot more than regular folks. That gave me that advantage that will make people say, I am talented. But when you say I'm talented, I laugh. Do you know how many hours I put into this thing? Intense hours, not regular hours. Pure concentration, obsession. You understand? And when I do things and they look extraordinary, well, I've been doing it repetitively for years.
At what point did you decide to go into photography? Now we have the digital cameras. So at what point did you make that decision to, adjust a bit from just, doing the normal painting as an artist to going into photography?
Photography came to me, I think. I would say photography came to me. It came to me. I didn't go to it. It imposed itself on me. You understand? In those days in university where I was imagining my future, I could not imagine photography. It wasn't there. My father had a camera, AV2 or something, some Canon camera, manual camera my father had that I took to school, and I used to play around with it. It was fun, but that was it. It was after several years of practicing art in Lagos, I wanted to go do plain air drawing, do some sketches. My paintings were about my environment. I said, okay, Kelechi, just study your environment. So I'll go with a sketch pad, go to jail. I was living in Sulere then. Go to jail, like, sit down and start to sketch. But it was impossible. People were not used to artists drawing. So you know how Lagos is. People just stop. And then a small crowd has not developed behind me. What is going on? You understand? Everybody had an opinion. It was Kelechi. They would say, okay, that man we carry barrow, where you never draw. You get one woman who just pass, so make you draw him. Those kind of. There's somebody who sit down and say, my younger brother is an artist. Should I get your number so that you can help him? I'm like, I'm just trying to make a sketch. The other time, and I said, okay, I think the solution to this is let me bring a camera and just take snapshots.
Oh,
and go to the studio and have my study, because you need to study. You need to study what you're drawing. In those books I read when I was in secondary school, they said you must breathe the air, you must touch the texture, you must feel whatever you're drawing, you must be immersed in it, you must understand it, the depth of it, so that you can have an informed opinion of what you are trying to draw. Do you understand? So I started to photograph those things. And that was how I started making photographs.
if you were to describe your journey right now, how would you describe it?
It's a journey of a constant self-discovery. it keeps unraveling this becoming. It's a constant state of becoming and evolving. It does not stay in one place. And that's the beauty of a journey. When you go, each time you move from where you are, you open up new horizons. And then you see further. And then you move to that new place. It opens another vista for you. And your perception and your navigation to where you want to go changes. I don't know if you understand. You can only decide to go somewhere that you can imagine exists. But if you get there, you start to see other possibilities. And that's what my journey has been. It's been an exciting state of constant unraveling of self. You understand? And I like to keep at it. I like to keep pushing myself into these environments where failure becomes inevitable. You understand? So I'm in constant search of failure.
You're in constant search of failure.
Yeah, it becomes my friend, you see. Success will not really teach you anything. Success is good for the ego. You understand?
Wow.
Failure teaches you humility, and then it teaches you how to navigate into success. You understand? It is how you handle the failure that then opens a nice, beautiful package of victory. Do not stay in that victory. Go in search of another failure. Push yourself beyond yourself so you would learn how to recover from the failure.
And I'm wondering, what has been your major hit? So when I say your major hit, because you're talking about failure, and you said failure makes you, some sort of humble. It gives you some sort of humility.
Yes.
For you, what is that one thing? What is that failure you had that broke you, but then you recovered from it?
It's in a constant state. You see, what I do with my work, you see, art is a funny thing. You know, you are required to be original, to create something that is not common. It's an irony, as an anathema to business. I've said this for any business endeavor that you want to go into. They would say, "Oh, go and do a market survey. Find out what the market wants.
Yeah.
Make it and market it, and you're good. You're into business. For you to find out what the market wants, you have to find out what has already been done. In which case, you're copying in one kind of way. But artists is encouraged to be original, which means you are creating a product that has not been market tested.
Yeah.
If you get what I mean? So in that in itself is an attempt at failure. I don't know if you understand. What if nobody wants it? You get what I mean? Of course, marketing becomes very key to find out who may want but then you've already invested in it. You've already created it. Your capital is, so to say, locked into that project. You've already spent your life's essence creating this artwork, which you then decide to find whether anybody likes. I don't know if you understand. So anytime I try to do that, anytime I try to be original, I'm already flirting with failure.
But do you have any regrets whatsoever? Your entire life studying law, becoming an artist, now becoming a creative photographer, well known. Do you have any regrets?
I think all these things have come together to make me who I am. If any of them shifted, I'll probably be in a completely different direction. Maybe if I hadn't read that book, I'd probably be a miserable lawyer somewhere, wishing I followed my dreams. Something very profound happened to me while I was in law school. Very interesting. There's a guy, I don't know if he would watch this. If he watches it, he will remember. As law students, we had accommodation. There was only one law school in Nigeria then. 1993, I graduated from law school. Okay. And there was accommodation crisis. Nobody had accommodation really. The accommodation there was dismal. And we're all new to Lagos. So the easiest place to get cheap accommodation close to law school is in Ikoyi. Boys' quarters, Ikoyi. So you're going to be living with people's houseboys, okay, in one room. So I was staying with this Mike, in Ikoyi before I found my own boys' quarters by myself. I was staying in this room with this houseboy. He was the houseboy to a Greek engineer that works in Coca-Cola called Papadopoulos, okay? And you know how those Ikoyi houses are. The boys' quarters are completely away from the main house.
Yeah.
So it was easy. You can easily live there without Oga knowing that anybody's renting out his BQ. So one day I was there and the boss now came to the boys' quarters looking for his boy. And he saw me. But there was a painting that I had done for my cousin who works for a company called Mandelas. And the boss of that company was a guy called Papadopoulos, another Greek guy, Ganakis, called Ganakis. And he wanted to make a present for the guy. He commissioned me to do his boss's portrait. So I made that portrait. So he was in that room. And there was this other Greek guy who was the boss of guy, and he saw that painting and he recognized that Greek man immediately. He said, "Is that Ganakis?" I said, "Yes." "Who made that painting?" I said, "It's me." He said, "And you're a law student?" Because he knows law students always, come to perch at the book. I said, "Yes." He said, "Incredible. Now you must come with me." I said, I'm in trouble. They have caught us. You understand? So he took me to the main house, okay? And he sat me down. And he said, "Listen." He went to a piano and started to play piano for me. Very good at playing piano. He said, "Look, I'm a musician. This is my first love." Showed me pictures of himself like a hippie, you understand? But I went to study engineering. Now I'm an engineer at Coca-Cola. This is my life. But I'm trapped.
Wow.
Don't be like me. Follow your passion. He said, "I'm learning how to play the acoustic guitar. But you see, I'm an engineer with Coca-Cola. This is my job. But this is what my whole soul wants to do." Well, I'd already made up my mind I was going to follow my dream.
Yeah.
He sort of,
Stirred something else.
he further re-emphasized it. It's like the world was coming to tell me he was one of the few people in the world. He just saw me and he knew my soul. And he said, "Follow that dream." The fact that I studied law put me in a unique space in the art world. Even my first exhibition that I had in my own sitting room, I called journalists to look at my collection of work. They looked at it and they published. And all of them put the headline, "Lawyer turned artist." I was like, no, I've always been an artist. They say, "Oga, relax. This is the headline." So I became that lawyer turned artist. So the art world was in turmoil. Who is this lawyer turned artist? And they looked at my work and said, "Incredible. How is this possible? This man's anatomy is like from medieval times of Michelangelo, when people were dissecting human, because I was studying anatomy from medical books in order to understand human anatomy. I mean, that was how obsessed I was with it, you understand? And so the fact that I was a lawyer, it was also another fact that made me to start to take photographs. I needed to get the best possible copy of my paintings. Well, because as an artist, the Copyright Act says that the copyright resides in you as the producer of the work, which means the right to exploit a copy of the work. The original work you can sell to somebody, the physical work belongs to him. He cannot make copies of it and make money from the copies of it. The law puts that in you, the creator. But then how can you exploit your copyrights when you do not have a copy of your work? So being a lawyer made me understand the importance of a very high resolution image of whatever you've created. It's one of the reasons why I made sure I understood how the camera worked, how to photograph artworks. And, so being a lawyer made that happen. So if you talk about regrets, yeah, I believe everything is happening just according to the way it's supposed to.
Beautiful. But how would you describe the growth that has happened, especially in the creative space, and just to narrow it down in photography? So before now, I'm pretty sure what you used to charge back then is not the same as how much you charge now. I'm pretty sure the gadgets you used back then, things have changed.
Yeah.
But for you, how would you describe the changes that have happened in the world of photography?
It's not just the world of photography, it's the world of storytelling.
Oops.
It's the change is I don't know how to put it. It's astronomical. It's fast. It's moving so fast.
Is it good fast or?
You see, it's you see, I'm an insufferable optimist. Okay, I just see the good and I ignore the bad. It's just my perception of life, and it has worked for me thus far. I just see the good. I don't see the downside. Okay, let me explain to you. We live in a world. Existence itself, you, who you are, is a function of your perception of self. And your perception of self is informed by your experiences and stories you've been told. That is who you project based on your memories and the stories you've been told. Your belief system is a function of stories you've been told. The things you did not experience, but the things you believe. They are handed down first from your parents, and then your school, then your friends, then your workplace, and then the society, and then your own personal research and experience with humanity. And all these things with a very complicated persona that becomes you. And if you aggregate a number of people with similar beliefs, it becomes culture. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And I start to see art and communication and photography, videography, music, literature. We occupy that space of stories that are being told, that everybody absorbs, that then translates to culture.
Sure.
Do you understand? It's a very powerful place to be in.
Yeah.
Now, something happened to us 200-300 years ago. Our path was interrupted violently. You understand? We were there, chilling with our normal movement of life and tradition and whatever. Some people came with gunpowder. You understand? With pale skin, with the Bible. And they shifted us violently. You understand? From our path. And they were very deliberate in their indoctrination. They somehow convinced us that we were inferior. They referred to us as savages and made us teach our children that what was right in front of us was discovered by them. And they gave us new names and they knew God. Incredible. And then decided to tell our own story for us. And then they took evidence of our past away into their museums. and convinced us to burn the ones that we had so that our children will not see evidence of our past. They told us our religion was animist. Our beliefs were fetish. Our drinks were illicit gin, while theirs was premium. Our language is vernacular. Incredible.
Mm.
A complete turnaround of a people, and left us in the dark. We still grope today to find who we truly are. Because vestiges of our past still lingers in our gene. And then we do not understand why we behave the way we behave. I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
Therein lies our confusion in Africa.
This year, the theme for World Photography Day is my favorite photo. I'm wondering what that says to you, though.
You see, photograph is a story, you know. I mean, you may have something that makes that particular photograph appeal to you. It could be the aesthetics of the photograph, how beautiful it is. But again, it could be just the significance of that photograph, you know, in relation to your experience as a human being. And that is the thing. Every photograph is telling a unique story through the eyes of the person that made it. But again, the effect of that photograph is a function of other people's experiences. Far away from the hand of the creator, the photograph assumes a life of its own and ministers to each person based on their personal bias. I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Somebody will make a beautiful painting of a cow and send it to a guy who is selling beef. And he will say, oh, this person appreciates my business. And he wants to know, he wants to tell me that, you know, I'm a good beef businessman. I don't know if you understand. If it's I think it's Hindu or so, where they worship cows, so this is a spiritual holy cow, you know, a spiritual present. I don't know if you understand. If you send it to probably an obese woman in America, and she would say, "Oh, it's an insult, you know, you're calling me a fat cow."
Different people, different perspectives, see
Exactly.
different things.
Yes, different people will see different things. It has different significance. That is why, for an artist, don't bother too much about how people are going to, you know, feel about your work. You know, bother about what you yourself think. You know, how you feel about it. You know, first. You know, satisfy yourself. You know, it's a bit selfish, yes, but you know, it's your unique experience in life that will bring that artwork and that perspective into the world. You know, if you're worried too much about what other people are going to think, you worry till your grave, because there are as many perspectives as there are human beings who see that work.
True. Very true. Just as we wrap up this conversation, I want to find out from you. You know, we've talked about the growth, the changes that have happened, and you've talked about, you know, how we've been made to believe, to let go of our own story and then believe some other person's story. But you know, like the saying goes, the African story can only be authentically told by an African. But then there's meant to be this push. Now we have leadership, now we have governance. And I want us to have that conversation because we have young people who are really ready to explore. However, there's certain limitations. As much as we may want to say that you can't limit yourself. The world is big, the sky is big, so you can go as far as much as you want. But there are just certain limitations, and sometimes it's just by people in position of power. I'm wondering what you would say to them, you know, especially with regards to telling the African story. Now, photography, it's a lot of gadgets to, you know, push it out there to tell the authentic story.
There's something that has happened, okay? One of the major changes is that the means of expression has been made available to everybody. Before, it was very exclusive. In the 60s, 70s, you understand? You to make a movie that they will play on the cinema, you need to shoot celluloid. Do you understand? See how expensive that Ogunde Gundele used to make those movies in those days. There are very few people who could make those kind of movies. It was too expensive to edit. They cut. This cutting film, critical film with scissors.
Yeah.
Jesus, was crazy expensive. I don't know if you understand. And what has happened is that with the era of the digital, just one laptop is a whole editing suite with DaVinci Resolve. Just a DSLR can shoot 4K video at 120 frames per second with a dynamic range that is ridiculous. You no longer need such a huge amount of equipment. You understand? So one kid with a DSLR and a laptop can make a movie that will win an Oscar.
Yeah.
You understand? So the bar has been
dropped.
So what you now need is this, which we have. So the power to tell the story has been put in everybody's hand. You understand? Now, that is an immense amount of power if you realize it.
But just as we wrap up the conversation, I would want to ask you, to the young creatives out there, I'm sure you have young people, you have team that you work with.
Yes.
To the young creative, your final words to them.
The final word I need to give to young people, just to do this, realize that you're powerful beyond measure. Those who have changed the world are those who are not smart enough to understand that it is impossible. Don't analyze too much. Get in there. Be true to yourself, and you will succeed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It has been absolutely thrilling, amazing, beautiful having this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the amazing work that you do.
Thank you.
And this is where we'll let the curtain fall on today's conversation. It has indeed been eye-opening, revealing, and inspiring. My name is Estelle Mello, and this is Rapid TV.